Yo, what's up, bros? My name is Adbi and we're back with another Mr. Lily recap. Boy! Bros, so many of you have been saying that I'm talking very fast in the intros and how Eminem has been real silent after hitting my intros, but this is the slowest I can go. I'm joking, bros. Before we start with the video, I have a huge thank you to say for watching all my recaps besides this one. You have no idea how much this means to me, and for all the comments too. You bros are so awesome, and if you're not a bro, subscribe now to become a bro today and enjoy in the video. This is part 24. If you wanna know what happens before, you can find previous parts in the description below. Now we see the teleportation ring that fell in front of Charles as he's reaching out for it and trying to grab it so he can teleport back to Old Wild, and just as he was about to pick it up, the destructive level mage Harper attacks Charles, and before finishing him off, explains that maybe if this was some other destructive level black mage, Charles would be able to escape, and explains that why he managed to catch Charles from a distance is because his body has no shape, and that's why he's using these bandages to maintain even a tiny bit of human form. Harper then turns around to Yuan and tells him that his prey almost got away because Yuan got distracted, and asks him if he really is much stronger than Charles. Harper also explains how Old Wild will probably find them if they stick around here for too long, so they need a new plan now, and instructs Yuan to take Charles's body to Helix, who's the current leader of the White Wolf clan. With his last breaths, Charles is looking at Yuan and Harper, who are devising a plan to trap Old Wild and kill him off too, by using the chopped off arm of Charles as bait. Charles's last thoughts were how he wants to meet Old Wild at least once more, and he apologizes for dying as the tears fall down his face. His last wish is not to die right now. Now we see Old Wild, who was sleeping while all of this was happening, and being a destructive level black mage, he had a dream about this and suddenly wakes up realizing Charles has died, which hits him so hard he starts yelling and screaming in sorrow with such force that he even breaks walls around him as he leaves the house to go find Charles. Now we see Harper patiently waiting for Old Wild to come with Charles's arm as a bait, just as he intended, and as he looks up at the full moon, he feels the aura of Old Wild, realizing he's finally come, and sees him walking in the distance. As Old Wild gets closer, Harper starts taunting and teasing Old Wild, but Old Wild just remains silent, wanting to find out what happened to Charles. As he sees Charles's hand, Harper starts manically laughing, screaming how he both mutilated and killed Old Wild's favorite disciple, and asking Old Wild how does that make him feel, while we still see Old Wild completely silent. Now we also learn about the trap rune that Harper has prepared on the ground, and if Old Wild would just take a couple more steps, he'd walk right into it, get trapped and killed by Harper and his men hiding around them. Harper continues thinking how Old Wild is one of the most powerful destructive level black mages out there, but if he steps in this trap, all of his powers will be useless because Harper will be the one that would kill him. But Harper needs to bait him a little bit more in order for Old Wild to walk into the rune trap. So in order to bait him, he starts taunting Old Wild more, saying how Charles was tougher than he expected because while he was being brutally killed by Harper, he didn't beg for mercy. He now yells at Old Wild, saying that if he wants to get his revenge, he should come at Harper, and Old Wild actually takes one more step and steps on the magic rune trap, completely shattering it, which leaves Harper surprised and scared because this rune trap was made to be able to trap destructive level mages, but Old Wild just destroyed it with a single step. Harper's beast men start charging at Old Wild, not realizing he destroyed the spell, thinking he stepped in it and got trapped, and Harper screams at them, telling them to fall back, as Old Wild turns around and utters, "The corpses are talking," as we see all these beastmen explode and their bodies fall apart in an instant. As their blood is raining from the sky, Old Wild's ominous reptilian aura starts emitting on all sides, and with a death stare, he looks at Harper, who now realizes that Old Wild is way more powerful than he was before, and how Harper's probably going to die now. He decides to run away, but before managing to escape, his body starts decomposing, and he thinks how words of a destructive level black mage like Old Wild shouldn't have this kind of an effect on the physical body of another destructive level black mage. As Old Wild is slowly approaching Harper, he breaks down, starts crying and begging to be spared, saying that if Old Wild lets him live, he'll give him everything that's left of Charles, as he takes out that ring and says that if Old Wild decides to kill him, he'll crush the ring so Old Wild will have nothing left from his adopted son. Now Old Wild finally speaks to Harper, telling him how he even once told Charles that there's no need to get emotionally attached to items of dead people. And as his magical black snakes start devouring Harper, Old Wild continues saying that it's just important to keep those people in your memories always. As Harper is getting devoured, he starts screaming in pain as we see giant black snakes emerge and swallow him completely. Old Wild comments how he's never heard such a terrible scream before, and as he flies upwards and looks at the full moon, he remembers his beloved Charles. While flying above the city, and still being in great pain because he just lost Charles, Old Wild comments how he'll destroy this entire city and send it off with Charles as well as a tribute to his deceased disciple. And Old Wild conjures a huge magic rune out of which dark energies start firing out and raining down on Nokin. And we get a shot of Joseph's wife holding their child in her arms as Joseph appears in front of her to save her and save the city as well. Bros, are we about to see the legendary battle between Joseph and Old Wild? Ooh, I'm so ready. And by the way, I gotta say, I like the angle of this picture too. We can see the back of Joseph's outfit, which is definitely, definitely looks nice. Now we see Joseph is completely focused and determined to stop Old Wild, and he charges his fist with holy energy and gets ready to unleash his attack, Endless Sacred Flame. He yells and releases the energy blast from his fist, and we can see it fly upwards and collide with Old Wild's black wave and completely stop it, leaving Old Wild surprised as well. Joseph tells Old Wild how Nokin is under his protection, and if Old Wild wants to cause these fireworks, he should go somewhere else. As he focuses up and we see a bright glow in his eyes, he orders Old Wild one more time to leave this city. After Old Wild sees the blade candela that Joseph has with him, he realizes that Joseph is one of the Radiant Knights, and with a slight tremble in his voice, Old Wild comments how this was supposed to be a tribute to his deceased disciple, but he still congratulates Joseph for being powerful enough to stop it. We can see that Old Wild also received some damage because there's blood spilling from behind his mask. He tells Joseph how he'll remember him after taking his life instead of destroying this city as a tribute to Charles, as dark energies start swirling around Old Wild. Joseph looks at his wife and daughter, which motivates him more as he takes out Sword Candela and jumps towards Old Wild, yelling that Old Wild should definitely try it. As we see both of them charging towards each other in epic fashion, we get to learn that this is the first time ever that they've battled, and that this battle lasted for 24 hours and happened completely in air above Nokin, and how from this battle onwards, they both see each other as their sworn enemy and will never stop until they kill one another. Now we go back to the present, where Old Wild thinks how he still feels the pain from that battle with Joseph, commenting how he'll forever carry this as his sin because he committed a crime he shouldn't have, and now he has to endure the consequences. He thinks about how Murphy's Scarlet Cult and Helix's White Wolves sealed their fate by meddling with Charles's dead body. He also thinks about how his plan went smoothly, the plan being that he taught Helix the special sacrificial method, which caused his clan to go crazy and kill each other without even realizing Old Wild's intentions. He also thinks how this gave him a lot of high quality materials for the sacrifice he is planning to make. Old Wild thinks how all of this is happening because Mr. Lin wants it too, and how he'll do everything in his power to achieve Mr. Lin's goals, as he also promises that this will not lead him away from the path of killing Joseph once and for all as well. We see him leave some flowers on Charles's grave leave, promising to kill Joseph as a tribute to Charles. Now we go back to one of the factories that belongs to the Truth Society, where they were doing experiments on people trapped in green pods, and we see the factory burning in flames, and as we go in to inspect, we can see the destruction inside of the building too. If you remember from the last time when Andrew was talking to the new vice president of Truth Society, an emergency occurred which stopped this new vice president from firing Andrew, and this is the accident, the emergency that had happened. Now we see Truth Society's special forces going in with the goal to find all the Philosopher's Stones that are still not destroyed, and also to save all the other people who are trapped in this building and are still somehow alive, but first to find Philosopher's Stones. We then see those two old geezers who were playing chess, and I'm sorry, but I forgot their names because I thought they will be irrelevant, but one of them is the leader of this department and the other one is comforting him, saying that he needs to stay strong now, and from his analysis, someone probably invaded this factory and killed all the humans that the experiments were being done on. They get many reports about the survivors and the deceased people, where the dead people make up at least 90% of the bodies found. The leader of this department then comments how they've had some extraordinary experiments in this here building, and comments how the security here is so tight that it's near impossible for an outsider to go in and cause this much damage. And this makes the other old guy realize that if it's not an outsider who caused this damage, they must really have an intruder in the Truth Society who betrayed them and is working on destroying the Truth Society. Now we see the doctors carrying dead bodies out on stretchers, commenting how this lab and the experiments done in it sure are dangerous, as one of them comments how the injuries on this girl are terrible, but how even if she didn't die here, she probably wouldn't have lived long because of the experiments done on her. He thinks so he's never seen her before, and my man straight up extends his hand to, I guess, try and touch her oppai. If you know what oppai means, shout out to you for watching my other recaps, but just as he was about to enter the oppai heaven, he actually gets sent to heaven because this girl suddenly wakes up and slits his throat in a second. And that's why you should never try to touch oppais, bros. As another doctor turns around, he sees the girl missing from the bed, and the next thing he sees is darkness because she attacks him as well, twisting his neck to the point of breaking and ending his life on the spot as well. After murdering both of them, she climbs up the ladders in hopes of escaping the building, and she actually manages to do so, and we see her walking through the streets of Nokin, all bloodied up and her clothes being ripped apart. While she's walking, a cat approaches her, and after seeing the cat, this girl just floats up through the rooftop of the building reflexively. Her face is visibly confused, and as she looks up at the full moon, her face relaxes as she admires the beautiful view. She reaches her hands towards the moon and gets a flashback while being trapped in a pod and trying to touch the moon. We learn that her name is Dirt Fetus S277. Is Elon Musk her father? Because this sounds like a name he'd give to someone. I'm sorry, Elon. Now, this is not her real name, but just her creation number. So this means she was the test subject number 277. We also see she has a barcode on the backside of her neck, and we learn that the Truth Society has done over 3,000 experiments on different humanoid subjects, and all of these experiments ended up being failures. The same goes for this girl as well, but her compatibility with Yitai was slightly higher than other test subjects. I honestly am not sure what Yitai is, but I think it's the essence from the Philosopher's Stone that we've mentioned earlier. Now, after this girl heard that she has only 1 year left to live, she started waiting for this one night and having thoughts she never had before. And due to her superhuman hearing and eyesight, she could hear what all the researchers were talking about and learn many useful information from them as well. She learned so many things about this lab, building, experiments, researchers working here, all from hearing all of their talks. And she also overheard one more thing, which led her to a conclusion that someone will make a move on this lab tonight and destroy it. As we see the spy throwing some explosive redstones, causing an explosion in this building, and while the fire is burning this whole place down, we can see his shadowy silhouette in the distance. That's all for today's video, bros. Thank you so much for watching. We've almost completely caught up with all the chapters of this manhwa. There's like enough left for 2 or 3 videos currently, but manhwa's still getting updated. Bros, one more time, please check out other recaps I do. This really helps me out a lot. Thank you so much for doing so. Stay awesome, bros, and peace!